In today's video, I'm going to work with my Barebow today and test and try out the Zniper arrow rest. I think that's how you pronounce it, Z-N-I-P-E-R. And it's, taking the Barebow world by storm and was heavily recommended. Somebody sent me one to play with and test, and I'm going to do that. So big thanks to Ryan for sending me a Zniper to get my hands on to see if that drop away is going to make a big difference on my crawls, especially at 18 meters due to how deep I'm crawling with 500 spine arrows. So, this is actually really cool. I've never seen one, never watched one work, and I just pulled it out of the box, started playing with it, and that's actually pretty cool. So the whole idea is it has two opposing magnets inside here that is attached directly to the lever arm of the actual arrow rest, and when you let go, the downward pressure that the arrow exerts on the arrow rest, when you let go, it drops away, so then it doesn't affect the arrow nearly as much, especially with the Barebow when you're string walking, string crawling, things like that. So the whole idea is you're supposed to adjust this so it drops when you're at point on distance with as low crawl as possible, because then that way when you let it go, even at your deepest crawl, it will drop away and potentially reduce the spread of your actual crawl gaps. At least that's what everything says online. So I'm going to play with it today, see if I can get it set up here at Blank Bale with my point on, and then I'll go back to 18 and see how much it's affected my crawl. So the previous video, I was experimenting with different length arrows to see how much it would affect my crawl, and many people had a lot of different suggestions on top of, changing my anchor and things like that, but I'm just not going to do that. I have many good reasons to keep the anchor the way I want. If you haven't seen that video, there's a link in the description below, plus I'll put a card at the top there for the actual explanation of my Barebow anchor. But in that previous video that I released, the 500 spine arrows, I'm crawling almost all the way down to the bottom of this tab on the this Yoast tab here. So we're going to see how much that gets reduced switching to this arrow rest. So the arrow rest I've been using is the AAE Free Flight Elite. It's been working out for me just fine. I've not had any issues at all. I'm realizing that the arrow rests are different thicknesses, so I'm going to have to adjust my center shot, unfortunately. So I'm going to take a quick peek at that before I put the other arrow rest on and make sure I get it set to the same spot. So it's all essentially still the same thing. It bolts on in place. It has a thick, heavy wire, but because that drop away mechanism and the way that it works, it supposedly reduces those crawls because the arrow won't bounce off of the wire as it's coming out of the bow from that really deep crawl and making it really affect the way the arrow is coming out of the bow. So I believe that's why it's supposed to reduce the crawl. And again, I'm going to test that and we're going to find out. So in addition to the actual arrow rest itself, it came with an extra wire, and it's got a small flathead screwdriver to adjust the stop down, and a nice, what looks like stainless or zinc coated fastener to mount it to the bow. So I'm going to use that one because it's a little thinner and I don't want the bolt to stick through the riser. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get the rest as close as I can to the riser without the little adjustment mechanism bumping into it to stop the actual drop away mechanism. So I'm just working on setting that. I think I've got that. Yep. So interesting. Alright, now I'll set my center shot. Some stuff in the way. I need to adjust the wire and get it into position. I know there's a balance of a few different things that you have to contend, because you have to have the adjustment on the tension of the magnet, but then also it adjusts the height of the rest, it appears. So I think you just got to balance and find that happy medium back and forth until it's set up right how you'd like it. Yeah, so it definitely does affect the vertical. See how an arrow looks on it. Kind of neat, actually. Yeah, it's actually very neat. Very, very cool. I don't know how sensitive to make it. I have no idea. I don't know. I'm gonna play with it. I'll shoot some here, blank bale, point on, you know, no crawl at all. See if I can get it to drop consistently without bumping it like this and making it drop prematurely. So I'll set up the 2 different cameras so you can get 2 different views and see how the actual adjustment's working. I forgot I need to adjust my center shot quickly, and it looks like I need to slide the rest in a little bit because it's kind of sticking out far, as you can see. So I gotta slide the rest in, so I think I adjust the Allen wrench that's on the very top, and I think I can just push the wire in. Yeah, that is right. Cool. Definitely a bit of a balancing act, but I don't consider this to be all that difficult to set up. I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts, so you got to adjust all these different things at different times, and it has to be all together at the same time in the right place. So, you know, it's a little complicated, plus it drops away when you don't really want it to right away while you're trying to set it up. At least it is for me, which, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's just a little bit of a juggling match here, and you know, that's all right. All right, now I got the arrow pretty much in the center of the plunger. Arrow rest looks good. It's in far enough now. Just tighten it down. And now you can see how that rest is sitting. And so I should now be able to shoot a few arrows here at blank bale, because I'm going to set it at blank bale with point on. There's no point in actually going back to the point on distance to set this. I just want to get a few arrows in and get it done, so then I can go back to 18 right away. So it did not drop. What you do is, I guess you tighten this screw down on the bottom a quarter turn at a time until you get to that spot where it just drops on you. So there's a quarter turn. Now that does slightly change the vertical placement of the rest. So as you adjust that, you have to make sure that your arrow location on the plunger doesn't change too much. And I'm pretty much at the extreme end of it, potentially too low. So I'll have to adjust that. It dropped that time. See if it'll drop again. Yeah, dropped again. So, and I didn't bump it, accidentally lifting. It's a little too low, so now I need to adjust that placement of the actual arrow rest, and then I'll go back to 18 and see how my crawls are. I'm excited for this, because if this could reduce my crawl, this will just help me that much more with this Barebow game. And I appreciate everyone. The extra arrow length is a little too much for this, I think. So I'm going to try it with my 500s for sure. So far, relatively easy to set up, actually. And it dropped again, so I'm good. I'm going to leave it there. Go back to 18 and see how the crawl changes. I will leave this camera down here, the one behind me, so we can see where the arrows are impacting the target. And I'll report to you my crawl change, hopefully. This should reduce my crawl a lot. So I don't know where to start, but I'm going to start with the 500s, and I will do my standard crawl here at 18 meters, 20 yards. We'll see where it goes. Wow, way low. Now that's pretty interesting. It flew really weird. We'll be able to find out if it flies better without such a crazy crawl. I don't think it even showed up on the camera down there, but I'm about 6 inches below the target. That's how low I am. So I'm gonna crawl up now on my tab, crawl less, and see what happens. So I'm gonna go to the middle of the yoast. So that's 2 full marks up from the bottom. That's more than 1 full mark change. So I'm pretty close, actually. That's a good guess. The rest is dropping how it's supposed to be. So I'll do that again. Center of the yoast. And it dropped away again. So I'm going to keep shooting and get my crawl really, really close. Looks like I'm hitting right. My center shot may have come in a little bit too far. So I'll probably bump my center shot out a little bit just because I quick eyeballed it. Before I did this video, I was hitting perfectly left and right. So the only thing that really changed is my center shot, I would assume. So I'm going to bump that out to just make the arrows hit in the middle, left and right, and find my crawl. And once I'm done and found my crawl, I'll tell you how much it actually changed. So just for the sake of not doing anything different other than just changing my arrow rest and having that much of a crawl change difference is pretty wild. Now I know I could have a lot less crawl with a simple anchor change, but I just don't want to. You know, I could shoot heavier arrows, but I like the feel of the fast bow, and you know, I like the forgiveness of it because the arrows in the bow a whole lot less time, and I feel like it's just a bit more forgiving, especially at my level. I wouldn't say I'm super consistent with the Barebow yet, so having that arrow come out of the bow nice and quick and be in the bow for a lot less period of time will give me a lot more forgiveness as far as bow arm stuff is concerned. So I'm gonna start with this, and you know, I do have some X-Drive 23s I might throw together because they're a little bit bigger, especially if this really works. And if not, I do have some 2312s, 2315s up to 250 grain points, so I can always play with that if I really want to. But I just feel like it's too slow. So I still need to actually reduce my crawl. I'm going to need a slight adjustment to my shot routine of reaching forward with my right hand to reset that. I just can't quite reach it with my thumb on my left hand. Whew. Try it again. I don't really like the way the arrows are flying. They're flying very different. I've never seen them fly this way. I just see a lot of whipping going on for some reason. So I'm gonna shoot a few more here and see if it changes my tune as well, because with these 500 spine arrows, the knock was reading really high as it was bouncing off the rest. I think it's definitely probably different now. The 420s and 350s that I have here tuned relatively fine here at 18 with this 18 meter crawl. So I'll do some experimenting and seeing what happens to the tune and all that other stuff. So now I'm at the exact same crawl that I was with the 350s. So arrows that were 2 3/4 inches longer, that's how much of a difference my crawl is made with just this arrow rest change. So I'll be interested to try the 350s to see if that changes too. I'm sure it will, but I'd be interested to see how much. I'm going to shoot a bear shaft to see how the 500 bear shaft flies and where it lands. So still relatively similar. The arrows potentially acting dynamically a little bit weaker for whatever reason. So I don't know if that's a common thing. For people who've experienced the Zniper and have set it up correctly and gone through this whole thing, does it affect your tune stiff weak at all? If it has, let me know in the comments below, please, because I'm interested to know, and I want to see if it's the same for everybody. I haven't really seen all that information out there as far as that's concerned. You know, I hear a lot of reduction in crawl, obviously is working so far as that's concerned, but I'd be interested to know if it changes a stiff weakness on your end, because I'm seeing potentially a little bit of change, not necessarily absolutely some change, but I would like to know if you have the same findings as I am so far. Bump my center shot out a little bit more. Now if this doesn't fix it, I will just adjust my plunger tension to get the groups in the middle, but I bet it's the center shot. I should have brought biter blocks out to do this, but I just wanted to get to shooting and playing with this setup because I heard so much about it and it actually seems to be working so far. Now I'm not seeing as tight a groups as I was with the AAE Free Flight Elite rest, but I'm still struggling with the crawl and figuring out where the plunger should be and all that stuff. I'm not upset at that, and I think it's just part of it. I'll need a little bit of time to decide if it is something I really like or not. I do like that it's reducing my crawls though. That is a good thing. Still hitting right. Give it some plunger tension to make a change. Well, so far it's dropping every time, but I would expect no less with this deep of a crawl. That's better. Yeah, still soldiers the same bear shaft tune on that arrow for whatever reason, but starting to do better impact point wise. So if you haven't seen the video where I was testing arrow lengths out to see how it would affect my crawl, there'll also be links in the description below for that one, plus a card at the top there. I'm going to see if the 420 spine and the 350 spine still is a huge amount of crawl difference. If I remember correctly, the difference between the 500s and the 420s, 1.75 inches in arrow length, and if I remember correctly, it was basically one full crawl mark. So I'm going to go one full crawl mark up again and see if that is the same still. So now I'm 1, 2, 3.5 marks up from the bottom. Still pretty close, and I still love the way that arrow flies. We'll see the bear shaft here. Still similar, dynamically acting a bit weaker, same as the 500s for whatever reason. Now this is a 350 spine, 2 3/4 inches longer, and if I remember correctly, the crawl difference was about 1 3/4 marks, give or take. That is now 4 full marks, 1, 2, 3, 4 full marks up from the bottom. I'm gonna do the same crawl with the bear shaft, the 350 bear shaft, and see if it's also acting dynamically weak. So 4 full marks up. Fine. The stiff weak wasn't too much of a change. Still flew pretty good. Dropped just fine. Starting to make a mark on my riser, so I'm going to adjust the screwdriver stop, because up top there is a white piece of nylon that stops the drop away from dropping too far and banging into your riser. There, so now I got a little bit of protection for my riser. A little quieter too. Actually, I really like this rest so far. I'm gonna shoot a couple more ends so you guys can watch if you'd like. And then I'll give a good summary at the end of what I actually think about this arrow rest so far. I need some more time under my belt with it to really decide if I actually like it, as far as if my groups are any better or not. I'm still trying to find my crawl, so it's too early to tell on that one. So I'm slowly finding a crawl. I'm up maybe 2 3/4 marks here from the bottom on this Yoast. Weird. I'm seeing like vertical variance that I'm not used to. It's probably me. I doubt it's the rest. Try that. 3 marks. The lighting's kicking my butt at the moment, between the light on the camera and just the conditions. Something I haven't gotten used to yet, as far as Barebow is considered, is the changing of light conditions and how it affects the arrow. Weird. It's really throwing me off. I don't know if it's my crawl that's inconsistent, my anchor that's inconsistent, or my head tilt that's inconsistent. Something that I've definitely not dealt with before. A lot of it has to do with where the knock is on my nose. I haven't figured out where to put that consistently yet. For the really deep crawl, I figured out it was just off my nose high, so that was a good, easy reference to make sure I used. But now, because this is changing, I have definitely never had vertical variance like this before. So I'm gonna probably say it's me. I'm gonna own that. Just not there yet for whatever reason. The knock being under my nose and touching my nose is definitely throwing me for a loop. So I am gonna keep playing with this and see what the problem is. I'm gonna suspect it's not the rest. Because, well, I'll just say the rest was a tool in helping me realize that something is inconsistent, so I'm gonna have to really pay attention to that. Other than that, what do I think about this Zniper rest? I think it is pretty cool. Something unique, something different, something that I really actually like a lot. I do like that it changed my crawl a huge amount. You know, I still need to adjust my tune and make that better, and maybe that's what I'm seeing now, is an inconsistent of the vertical groups, because part of it is my tune as well. As you see with the 500 bear shaft, it's really knock high. I am running about just under a quarter inch of negative tiller, so my bow holds well, especially at this distance here. So I will need to adjust and play with my nocking point to get rid of that. And now that my crawl is much higher up on the tab with those 500s, I'll do that. I'll tune the nocking point to see if it makes it any better. So where it has changed my crawl, I'm happy to report, from 0.85-ish all the way up to the third mark from the bottom. So I made it's about a centimeter actually of crawl change on the actual tab plate here, just at 18 meters. So I'm gonna assume that all of my gaps are probably closer together because of that. Now I don't know what my point on, if that's changed or affected that. I don't know my actual point on without the Zniper arrow rest, so I'll have to play with that and see. I do notice for sure a big change in the crawl up at these closer distances with those deep crawls. And like I said, I'm seeing vertical variance. I think it's probably me. It's a combination of anchor, head tilt, so the knock location, adjusting the crawl because that's different, and I'm going to assume now potentially the tune as well is just showing itself because it was so far out of whack before, and it still is pretty out of whack for whatever reason. So I'll probably have to play with that and adjust that. But I do really like this Zniper arrow rest. It's really cool. I'd be interested to try it on an Olympic recurve and you know, some of those other things to see how much it changes, because it's really neat. There's no play in it. It's really compact. It's a little longer in the back, but it's smooth, so you can't really tear your hand up on it. The only thing that I think would be really nice is potentially some dials for your fingers to adjust by hand. That might be kind of neat. Or the ability to lock it too, like a side set screw to hold them in place, especially with this drop away limiter. You know, it's so loose, I can spin it by hand like that, just touching it. It doesn't really stay in place. I think it'll walk all over the place from vibration. Maybe not, because the vibration happens when it's in the down position, when the pressure's up, so maybe not. I think it's great. It wasn't very hard to set up. It was a little finicky because you kind of got to have your order and alignment, you know, in the correct order. So meaning set your drop speed, drop pressure, whatever, but then you're also adjusting the height of it, because as you're adjusting the drop pressure, that is changing the actual vertical location as well. So, you know, there's back and forth to it. So it's a little tricky, but it's nowhere near as tricky as I've heard, as far as some people have said it was, but it worked out really good and is easy to set up. And it made a huge difference in my crawl. I'm happy about that. I'm a little upset that I've got to figure out why my groups aren't as good anymore. But again, I really highly doubt it's the rest. It's probably just my Barebow newness showing for whatever reason. You know, because before this, I'd very rarely ever shoot an arrow outside of the 8-ring. And now I've got them all over the place as far as I'm concerned. So I'll put some time and effort in and practice with it some more, and probably do a follow-up report back tied into some other videos, because I'm going to play with this Barebow. I'm probably going to play with some different risers, and I'm going to put some of the newer win limbs on this setup to use as a Barebow, because I have the new ones, so I might as well be using them. Thanks again to Ryan for sending me this Zniper arrow rest. I believe that's how you say it. Based out of Germany. Really impressed, actually. So I am excited to get one for myself and play with it full time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, consider hitting the subscription button and the notification bell, as well as the like button. I would appreciate it. Also, please consider supporting my channel. If you head to my website, jakekaminski.com, there'll be info and links on Patreon, apparel, books, and equipment sales, PayPal donate button, a P.O. box to send things to, and above all else, please share this video, because there's no better advertising than word of mouth.